Animals are an important part of our world. Their presence makes a big difference in our lives. Did you know that dog owners are significantly more likely to stay alive 1 year after a heart attack than non-dog owners are? Animals can help reduce levels of anxiety, loneliness, and depression. They can detect seizures before they even happen. Animals also provide support to people that need it. And with the growing global population, we depend on animals to feed the world. Because animals and humans rely on each other so much, this contact can enable diseases to spread between us. Of the 1,461 diseases recognized in humans, 60% are due to multi-host pathogens affecting multiple species. 75% of emerging animal diseases can be transmitted to us. It's important that we look out for the health of animals and humans alike. In addition to contributing to our health and well-being, animals contribute so much more to our lives. We learn new things from them every day. It's our global goal to help veterinarians, pet owners, and farmers keep animals healthy. Because healthy animals make the world a better place. And that's what Science for a Better Life is all about.
The health of pets is always under threat from a variety of parasites and the diseases they may transmit. Effectively controlling parasites is therefore critical to keeping pets healthy. Advocate from Bayer acts against a broad range of internal and external parasites in dogs, cats and ferrets. Advocate is an easy-to-use, spot-on product designed for convenient, regular application. With the pipette held in an upright position, the cap is twisted and pulled off. To remove the seal, the cap is then reversed, put back onto the pipette, pushed down and turned slightly. On a cat or ferret, the content of the pipette is directly applied onto the skin at the base of the skull. For dogs up to 25 kilos, Advocate should be applied directly onto the skin between the shoulder blades. For dogs above 25 kilos, Advocate should be applied in 3 to 4 spots from between the shoulder blades to the base of the tail. On all pets, one hand should be used to part the fur so the skin becomes visible. The pipette should be placed directly above the skin and squeezed several times until it's empty. Once Advocate has been applied to the animal's skin, the two active ingredients, imidacloprid and moxidectin, act in two very different ways. While imidacloprid is distributed evenly along the lipid layer of the skin surface and the hair follicles, moxidectin is absorbed through the skin into the blood circulation. Imidacloprid spreads across the whole body surface of the animal treated with Advocate. It acts against external parasites such as fleas and lice. With Advocate, fleas do not have to bite the animal to be exposed to imidacloprid. Imidacloprid is absorbed through the flea's body surface and causes an overstimulation of the nervous system, resulting in the death of the parasite. The second active ingredient, moxidectin, penetrates the skin and is distributed throughout all tissues to effectively kill various internal and external parasites. Deposits of moxidectin in fat tissue act as a drug reservoir, enabling drug availability over a prolonged period of time. Moxidectin prevents heartworm and treats ear mites, Demodex and Sarcoptes mites, as well as lungworms and various gastrointestinal worms, such as roundworm. Taken up through the parasite's mouth, moxidectin disrupts nerve impulses, resulting in paralysis and death of the parasite. Moxidectin is also effective against some external parasites, such as ear mites. Eomites take up moxidectin while eating skin debris and are efficiently killed. Advocate. Comprehensive parasite protection made easy. The health of dogs is at risk from heartworms, a major parasite transmitted by infected mosquitoes. The infection of the dog starts with an infected mosquito taking a blood meal. Infective third-stage larvae L3 of the parasite Dirofilaria immitis are deposited on the surface of the dog's skin. Immediately afterwards, these L3, about 1 millimeter long at this stage, enter the dog's body using the puncture wound left behind by the insect. In the dermis, the heartworm larvae undergo the next stage of their life cycle and molt into L4 within 3 days post-infection. Then they begin traveling through the tissue and later migrate into the dog's venous bloodstream, which transports them towards the heart and lungs of the dog. Approximately 60 to 90 days after the initial infection, they start arriving in the small pulmonary arteries, having molted into their final stage, immature adults, sometime along the way. At this point, the immature adult heartworms are about 1 inch long. They now begin to grow massively, pushing into larger and larger pulmonary blood vessels until some of them finally end up in the pulmonary artery close to the heart. Then an inflammatory process on the pulmonary vessel wall is elicited by the parasite. This progressively leads to pathology of the lung and the blood vessels, ultimately resulting in vascular resistance or pulmonary hypertension. With higher worm burdens, right heart hypertrophy develops, leading in the long term to right-sided heart failure and potentially to the death of the affected animal. Heartworms are also responsible for a marked increase in the dog's risk of thromboembolism. Once a worm dies, it can block a smaller pulmonary artery completely, resulting in the infarction of the surrounding tissue. About 6 to 8 months after infection, the adult, now sexually mature, female worms start producing offspring, the microfilaria stage of Dirofilaria immitis. These microfilaria circulate in the cardiovascular system of the infected dog, ready to be ingested with the blood meal of a feeding mosquito. Inside the insect, over a period of about 14 days, the L1 larvae develop into the infective L3 stage by molting twice. This mosquito is now a new vector of heartworm infection, threatening the lives of dogs and cats in endemic areas. In most parts of the world, the parasitic roundworm Toxocara canis is highly prevalent in dogs. On average, about 10% of the world's dog population are infected at any time. However, this can be much higher in specific populations, such as puppies or not well cared for dogs. Excreted with the dog's feces, the eggs of this endoparasite can survive in the environment for several years, putting not only dogs at risk of infection, but also humans, particularly young children. Dogs can easily become infected with T. canis throughout their lifetime. They take up the infectious eggs orally. Within 2 to 3 hours, the L3 larvae hatch in the dog's gut and start penetrating the intestinal wall. In adult dogs, the immune system recognizes the invaders, and immune cells try to immobilize them. To this end, the individual L3 larvae are encapsulated in so-called granulomas. Especially in puppies with their not yet fully developed immune system, but also in adult dogs, some larvae escape this defense barrier, enter the blood vessels, and are carried along with the bloodstream. They reach the liver and subsequently the lungs, triggering inflammatory processes and the formation of further granulomas in both organs. Inside the lungs, the L3 larvae leave the vessel, migrate into the connective tissue, and enter the alveoli. Here they undergo a molt. The affected dog coughs up the resulting L4 larvae and then swallows them again. In this way, the L4 larvae reach the small intestine where they molt into immature adults and grow by 10 centimeters. After maturation, they mate and the females lay up to 100,000 eggs per day. These eggs are then excreted with the feces. In the environment, a larva develops in the egg and molts twice to become infectious. It is now ready to be taken up by another passing dog. Predominantly in adult dogs with fully developed immune systems, T. canis can be diverted to various other organs and tissues such as the muscles, the kidneys, and even the brain. In any of these, inflammations can occur and granulomas can be formed. But even after immobilization in granulomas, the larvae may become activated again, for instance by pregnancy hormones. In pregnant dogs, activated larvae are transmitted through the placenta to the unborn puppies. They can also be transmitted after birth via the milk. Due to these two routes of mother-to-puppy transmission, most puppies are either born infected or are infected shortly after birth. The signs of a T. canis infection in dogs are not always visible, but the parasite may cause severe symptoms and, in rare cases, even death. Most of the symptoms are associated with the digestive system: diarrhea, vomiting and weight loss, or constipation and accompanying distension of the abdomen. Sometimes bacterial lung infections caused by migrating larvae can also be observed. Toxocara canis can infect not only dogs but also humans. The most common sources of infection are contaminated soil or the consumption of contaminated raw vegetables. Petting a dog bears only a very low risk if simple hygiene is observed. In the vast majority of cases, an infection in humans will go undetected. Flu-like symptoms are most common, but in rare cases there are more serious consequences. Once inside the human body, the larvae enter the bloodstream, travel with it, and start their migration into various organs. Depending on the path the larvae take in the human body, 3 different diseases can be observed. The term ocular larvae migrans describes larvae entering the eyes, potentially causing impaired vision or, in rare cases, even blindness. Cerebral toxocariasis affects the brain, while visceral larvae migrans is a condition in which the internal organs are affected. Most common, however, is covert toxocariasis. The larvae travel through the body without causing severe symptoms. An infection with T. canis is difficult to diagnose, and symptoms include a wide variety of clinical signs such as fever, sleeping difficulties, abdominal pain, swollen lymph nodes, asthma, and wheezing. Due to the absence of licensed products to treat toxocariasis in humans, the best treatment is prevention. This mainly includes proper hygiene, such as washing your hands, and raw, potentially contaminated foods. Children in particular should be prevented from eating soil at playgrounds or other high-risk areas. Additionally, environmental contamination should be reduced as much as possible, for example, by picking up and disposing of dog feces immediately. Furthermore, regular treatment of worm infections in dogs is recommended, as it reduces or even prevents egg shedding and therefore contamination of the environment. Luckily, easy solutions are available for dogs. By regularly deworming dogs against T. canis, you limit the presence of the parasite in the environment at the same time. In this way, the risk of infection for humans also decreases. Drontal by Bayer is an easy-to-give tablet. It acts against all relevant intestinal parasites such as tapeworms, hookworms, roundworms, whipworms and Giardia. Ask about Drontal worming tablets.
Drinking from a puddle can be dangerous, either via contaminated water or directly by ingestion of fecal material. Dogs can be infested by single-cell Giardia parasites. These are tiny microscopic organisms called protozoa. Giardia occurs in two different forms. In the environment, they survive as a resistant cyst with a thick wall. Once ingested, these cysts move to the dog's intestine. Here, the cyst wall is digested and two trophozoites are released. This is the pear-shaped form of Giardia, which has 8 hair-like flagella for movement. The parasite has a large sucking plate on the lower side of its body. This enables it to suck and stick to the surface of the intestinal wall. Here, asexual reproduction on a massive scale starts by a process known as binary fission. Numerous trophozoites attach themselves with their sucking plate to the intestinal wall, disturbing its function of transporting water and nutrients. Depending on the age and immunity of the dog and the number of ingested cysts, this may lead to intermittent and sometimes intense diarrhea, weight loss, and other gastrointestinal symptoms. When the trophozoites move further down in the gut, they again start to form robust cyst walls, which will enable them to survive in the environment once they're excreted via the feces. Millions of cysts are excreted and are able to contaminate water and the environment. Not only dogs, but also humans can be infected via drinking water, ingesting contaminated earth, or from close contact with infected dogs. Normally, humans and dogs have distinct types of Giardia, but sometimes both harbour identical types, or so-called genotypes. Dogs can be effectively treated by using Drontal Plus deworming tablets. A standard dose given daily for 3 consecutive days kills all the Giardia living in their intestine and also all worms. Drontal Plus kills the trophozoites in the gut and stops reproduction. It also stops the creation of cysts, so no more cysts are excreted, stopping any further spread of the disease. However, since there may still be cysts in the environment, for effective control of Giardia infection in animals, additional hygienic measures such as disinfection of the dog's environment is recommended. Talk to your veterinarian about treating giardiasis in your pet and how to protect your family. Easy to apply and effective protection against ticks and other ectoparasites. Advantix Spot On. After the entire contents of the pipette have been applied to the skin, the active substance spreads rapidly over the complete surface area of the dog. Ticks are picked up following contact with grasses. Once on the skin, the tick comes into contact with Advantix. The active substance on the skin hyperexcites the fine nerve endings of the tick's feet. This so-called hot foot effect prevents ticks from biting and thus reduces the risk of transmission of dangerous pathogens. As if it had touched a hot plate, the tick becomes uncoordinated and leaves the host as fast as possible before it can attach itself to the skin. Advantix has a double effect. It prevents ticks from attaching themselves. In other words, it repels them and also rapidly kills them. The dog notices nothing and can enjoy exploring outdoors well protected.
Bear. Science for a better life.